Tarpley in Washington, once again completing our discussion of Butcher Barkey and his escalation of the Afghanistan war. It's a tragic moment. One factor to bear in mind, with 115,000 U.S. and NATO in Afghanistan, and presumably something like 100,000 U.S. remaining in Iraq, the U.S. now has zero strategic reserve. I think probably zero tactical reserve, for that matter. Right? They got some people in Germany. They got some people in Okinawa. They're still there. This is now the time when you find out what there is in the world, and this is something you don't want to find out. Let's suppose Kim Il-sung is what they say he is. I don't think he is, but suppose he is. Wouldn't Kim Il-sung look at this and say, well, it's now or never. It's never going to be as advantageous to make a move against the U.S. And you'll find, I don't know, somebody in Latin America, somebody in Africa, somebody somewhere around the world. And again, we don't know who these people are because they've generally been suppressed, right? They saw what happened to Saddam Hussein and so forth, and what's happening to Iran. So therefore, they've kept their heads down. But now with the U.S. reduced to zero strategic reserve, this is utter folly. This is what you don't want to do, because now you're saying aggressors of the world, madmen, lunatics, and there really are some. They're just not that powerful in general. Here's your chance to have a go. So let's see what happens with that. The other thing, of course, is the money. U.S. national bankruptcy clearly looms. We're told that this is going to be a long commitment, although Obama is hurrying to include the exit strategy in the entry speech. So he's going to wrap it all up in a package, presumably with some kind of if not a timetable, at least benchmarks. So now we're back to Bush speak on that front too. So all of that happening. Congressman Obey of Wisconsin, I think, in his powerful position on the House Appropriations Committee, right, the College of Cardinals. He would be the dean of the Chamberlain of the College of Cardinals. He says, if you want to do this, Obama, you should pay for it. It's an interesting fact, right? Even the reactionary Republicans always say, well, if you want to have health care, you've got to pay for it. Where's the money going to come from? Naturally, the reactionaries, Limbaugh and others, when they heard about Obey, they went ballistic and apoplectic, because they say they want to pay for things. They don't like the deficit. But, of course, when it comes to a war, this transcends anything that Limbaugh would talk about. One of the main indices of the dishonesty and the fakery of the people who have dominated these Tea Party rallies, the people who have determined the speakers list, is that they have no anti-war speakers whatsoever. They have no Puma Democrats. They have no dissident Democrats, no anti-war people. They don't have Ron Paul in that group in the Republican Party. It's all corporate, Wall Street, globalized, warmonger Republicans. But there is this body of opinion. So let's hear from them. And above all, I would talk to the Democrats in the House of Representatives. Dear out of Iraq caucus, dear anti-war forces in the House, do you exist? Are you still there? Will you try to block the funding for this absolute folly of military adventure? Watching the discussion of the talking heads on public broadcasting yesterday evening, once this had all become known, because it came from McClatchy in the course of the day, then it came from CNN a little bit later in the day. It's going to be 35,000 U.S. And not any less. Plus the NATO if they get it. You think about the supercilious, superficial, arrogant, stupid, complacent attitude that these pundits have towards these great questions of national destiny. A de Gaulle, for example, in this moment would have to say to escalate Afghanistan is to destroy the remaining trump cards that our nation possesses, and we would then be adrift as a helpless wreck on the ocean of adventures. And that's where we're headed right now. And remember, de Gaulle was able to say, if you continue the Algerian war in that instance, you're going to destroy the form of government inside France. And there were even attempts to launch paratroop attacks from the reactionary French generals in Algeria. They were going to land at Paris, right? The people had to come out and mobilize. They had to put vehicles across the runways to prevent a civil war. That's pretty much what happened in the Spanish Civil War in 1936. You bring back the military force into the country and have a civil war based on who's going to rule. So this is an absolute disaster. Finish the job, says Obama. So we've gone from hope and change to finish the job, and of course lots of recrimination against Mad Dog Bush for not being a big enough warmonger, apparently, right? Obama now, I think quite clearly, to the right of Bush Cheney in practice, although the slogans are still somewhat more hypocritical. Now, we've also got to factor in the ominous implications of the state visit of Manmohan Singh, the first state dinner of the Obama administration, held in this tent behind the White House, a heated tent on the evening of Tuesday, the 24th of November. This is grim and ominous. Why is it so important for the U.S. to have, as Obama says, a strategic partnership with India, for India to have a leadership role in Asia, or as the lunatic Fareed Zakaria says, for India to be the hegemonic power, the dominant power of South Asia? Well, this is what is known as a continental dagger. The continental dagger is simply this. The British method in geopolitics in the 19th century, but going back centuries before, was that the British would ally with the second strongest, if they could, ally with the second strongest continental power against the strongest. So they would therefore get the use of a strong land army in Europe, which would then be sent to the butcher, sent into the meat grinder, for the greater glory of the British Empire, and whoever became the British ally was duped, and they actually fared worse than the British Empire, than the British enemies, in this thing. It was more dangerous to be an ally of the British than to be the enemy. So again, the typical one is World War I. Who are the continental daggers? Well, France and Russia are the number 1 and 2 continental daggers, and both of them are basically destroyed. France is destroyed demographically, and Russia is destroyed politically, militarily, economically, and just about any other way. There is a very interesting essay by the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, which goes back to the time of the Kennebunkport Lobster Summit back in 2007, which was, of course, the attempt of Bush the Elder and Bush the Younger to make an offer to Putin saying, here, why don't you become our continental dagger against China, and we will support you and work with you, and then we'll use you in some kind of a conflict with China. So what Lavrov writes about in this interesting essay is to say, look at Russia's experience in 1914 to 1917 and thereafter. Country basically destroyed, torn apart, because they had accepted the role of being the cat's paw and the continental dagger for the British on the Eurasian landmass. Now, this individual of unlimited folly, this Manmohan Singh in his blue turban, has embraced the role of the continental dagger, and he believes that he's getting benefits from this. He thinks he's getting the U.S.-India nuclear deal, and that somehow makes it worth it. I would urge Manmohan to go back and look. What happened to France after 1914? What happened to Russia? National destruction. This is what awaits India if they go down this path. We'll be back in a minute.